So the first book is a very thin one in which it's like a summary of the topic. What was India's educational heritage? How did it get destroyed? So the most exciting thing for me, I think, when I was breaking the stereotypes, like I had made a lot of assumptions about ancient India, and when those were getting broken, I was feeling so thrilled about it. I feel it's absolutely ready. This is the time that what Vidyakshetra is doing right now. It is just the right time to have hundreds and thousands of Vidyakshetras because people just need to know. We already know that a lot of people are wanting to come back from from America, from UK. They actually want to come back to India. This has been going on for the last 10 years because when they go abroad, yes, they make money, they lead the good life, but then a certain emptiness starts coming in. And I'm actually seeing it already. Living in America, I do know that there are people who are asking me, where can I learn Sanskrit if I go to India? Which is the best place? Should I go to Kashi? Should I go to Gujarat? Should I go to South India? Or I want to know more about culture. So these questions are coming.
Sahana Singh is an author and commentator currently based in the United States. She is an environmental engineer by qualification who writes on a variety of issues including Indian history, water management, and education. Her first book, The Educational Heritage of Ancient India, How an Ecosystem of Learning Was Laid to Waste, has been appreciated for awakening Indians to the role played by India in spreading knowledge around the world. Her second book, titled Revisiting the Educational Heritage of India, published by Vitasta, explores in greater depth the subject of India's unique ecosystem of learning, which created a knowledge-centered society and laid the foundation of the major academic disciplines being pursued today. An alumnus of Delhi Technological University, Sahana ji made a career shift to writing after moving to Singapore. She worked as editor of Asian Water magazine for many years. Sahana ji has won several awards for journalism, including the Developing Asia Journalism Award in 2008. A short animation video made by her on the world's water crisis won the top prize at the TU Delft Urban Water Movie Contest, awarded by the Delft University of Technology, Netherlands, in 2012. Her articles have been published in Reader's Digest, Washington Post, Discovery Channel Asia, Asian Water Magazine, Swarajya, India Facts, and other publications. She has moderated panel discussions on water management at several international conferences. Sahana ji is on the board of many non-profit organizations related to history, heritage, education, restoration of samskara, and to the cause of helping Hindu refugees. She is passionate about traveling and connecting the dots across different societies, civilizations, and disciplines.
Namaste. It's a pleasure that Sahana ji is with us today. Sahana Singh, the author of Revisiting the Educational Heritage of India. That's the latest book. She's authored 2 books on education. Today, we are very fortunate that she's with us. She's here to have a small discussion with us. Welcome to Vidyakshetra, Sahana ji.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
So, we would like to ask you a few questions. Let's begin from the beginning. What has got you interested in education? Earlier, I believe you were researching on the water systems. What caught your attention in education?
This is a question I get asked very often. Actually, I think that there are some bigger reasons why this would have happened. Behind, a lot of maybe past karmas, my blessings of my elders. But on the face of it, moving to the US was a big change. That's when you're asked to talk about your identity, who you are, and what it means to be an Indian. So moving even to Singapore. Earlier, I moved to Singapore and then to the US. So moving out of India was a time when I had to think about myself, my country, my culture, my civilization. All those questions came up. And I was, of course, always in touch with history, reading books by Dr. David Frawley. And I knew that our history, that what we learned in school was wrong. But the impetus came from the textbooks that my daughter got to use in her school, in high school in America, the high school textbooks, which the way they presented India did not seem right at all. And that's when I started writing about history, even though it was not my subject. I'm an engineer by qualification, and I thought I shouldn't be writing about history. But when I found that Indians were being depicted in history books very wrongly, I began to write about history. And while writing about history, this topic of education came up because Dr. Raj Vedam and me, we both he wanted that we do a radio show on different topics. And he asked me to do something on education, ancient Indian universities like Nalanda, Takshashila. So I said, okay, let me read up. And I thought I'll just talk about some few universities and that's it. But as I went deeper, I just realized that there was so much that needed to be told to the world that we don't know, or maybe we knew and we have forgotten. So that's how education became a topic, because the Guru Shishya Parampara started getting revealed to me as I did my research. I read Radha Kumud Mukherjee's book on ancient Indian education. Of course, he titled it as Brahminical and Buddhist education, which I was not very comfortable with, that kind of dichotomy. But when I read it, he has really described what Gurukulas were like. And then as I read more and more, I read many other books, Altekar and many others, and that's how the journey began to know about Indian education system.
Thank you, Sahana ji. So, it's been quite a journey, as I can see. Authoring 2 books, it must have been quite a task. Which one did you enjoy the most? And essentially, both of them speak about the educational heritage of India. So, after the educational heritage of India, you wrote Revisiting of that very educational heritage. So, which one did you enjoy the most? And in a nutshell, what is the essential difference between the 2 books?
I enjoyed writing both. So the first time I wrote the first book, it was very, very enjoyable because it was my own journey of discovery that I was documenting. So the first book is a very thin one in which it's like a summary of the topic. What was India's educational heritage? How did it get destroyed? And it spoke about the Guru Shishya Parampara, ancient universities, and there was a map that in which I plotted different universities. So it was a very basic book. The second book, maybe I enjoyed it a little bit more because I was delving deeper into the topics. I always was a little dissatisfied that my first book didn't go too deep into the topics. So in the second book, I gave more details, more references. So I would say that I also went into topics like memory training in ancient India. How did people develop those gargantuan memories, gigantic memories, in which they remembered the whole Vedas and they remembered many, many Shastras. So I explored that topic. Then the topic of Brahmacharya, which I just touched upon in the first book, but in the second book I went in more detail. Brahmacharya is very fascinating. How the students develop character, how credentials are needed not just in the disciplines that you're studying, the expertise in the disciplines, but also in your character. The credentials in character are being developed through the Brahmacharya institution. So I explored that. Then also something about the nuances of education, the guru, the relationship between the guru and the shishya. That is a topic I explored more in the second book. And then educational games, which was not at all there in my first book, but in the second book I looked at chess, cards, and snakes and ladders, which were educational games. So I took that. And then the spread of knowledge from India to the rest of the world, the transmission, the translation into different languages. So there were so many routes by which Indian knowledge went. So there is a map which a lot of people have liked. Not a map, it's a schematic which shows how Indian knowledge went to China, how it went to the Western Asia, how it went to Eastern Asia. So that schematic, and then of course all the details of that are there. It's the longest chapter in my second book. So all that was a lot of very, very revealing and very, very satisfying to know how India shared knowledge with the rest of the world. And then coming to the destruction, there are more details about that in my second book. Destruction, which is from the invasions as well as from the colonization, more and more evidence. Because, in today's world, if you write books without enough evidence, then that's a problem, because we are all in the social media, we are debating, or in the real world, we are going to universities and we are having all these debates. So it was important to write a book which fleshes out all these topics, gives the references. So that's what my second book is about. And I kept the educational heritage phrase in both the books so that people know that
It's relatable.
Yes, they're both related.
Yeah. Yes. So that brings me to a very important question. You spoke about Dr. Altekar. Is there somebody you have drawn inspiration from, that it's reflecting in your own thought processes today?
Well, of course, Dr. Radha Kumud Mukherjee's book was the most, the most detailed book, comprehensive book on ancient Indian education that I came across. Altekar and Apte were also there. But I think it's also from my own family traditions, where I know how my father, my grandfather, and his father, how Vyakarana was passed down the generations. So they have been very inspiring people for me. So that is what led me to dig more and more to find out. There are many books but nobody really goes deep into the pedagogy. One of the things is that you have to actually infer what the pedagogy was like in ancient India, right? Nobody will tell you that this is how we taught the subject, but you have to understand it. Except in Ayurveda, I know that there is a lot of pedagogy, information on pedagogy, but for all the other subjects, there is inference that you have to do. So I think the inspiration is our Indian knowledge systems itself, that when we just dig a little bit, we realize there's so much knowledge out there and you can make out that what you're studying today has directly come from that ancient Indian knowledge. So that subject itself was so inspiring. But yes, the first book for me was Radha Kumud Mukherjee's book. And I came to know that he was actually a professor who taught my grandfather in Bangalore.
Achha.
So when I came to know that he was one of the professors who inspired my grandfather, I said, wow, I refer to the same book.
Yeah. When I was revisiting your latest book, it was an unputdownable book for me. It was almost like a racy novel, because you filled it with so many interesting facts, awe-inspiring examples, anecdotes. What, according to you, was is the most interesting part for you?
I'm so glad you're saying it's unputdownable. That's exactly what I wanted to do when I wrote, because a lot of history books are very boring, right? They go on, and you wanted to. So making a narrative was the biggest challenge for me. That you go from chapter to chapter and you still feel that continuity. So the most exciting thing for me, I think, when I was breaking the stereotypes, like I had made a lot of assumptions about ancient India, and when those were getting broken, I was feeling so thrilled about it. Like one such was, I used to think that in ancient India it must have been so hard to travel, and so people would have gone to universities close to them, so they wouldn't have traveled very far in search of education. So that when I came to know that people from southern India are traveling to northern India and vice versa, so Ramanujacharya is going to Kashmir to refer to the books in Shardapit, the manuscripts in Shardapit University, or I'm learning about people going from the north to study in Kantalur Shala in Kerala. So, all this, and, Vallabhi University was set up by professors from Nalanda. So, west, Vallabhi is in the west, Nalanda is in the east of India. And so I came to know that people were even then making all these journeys to the institution of their choice. And then, of course, you have foreign students. You have Zhuangzhang, you have Payan, Yijing, so many scores of foreign students coming to India, and the way they're making the journeys, they're coming by ship, they're walking, they're coming on horseback, using every means, they're walking, sometimes they're dying on the way, they're falling sick, but somehow they want to come and study in India. So, these things were very exciting for me to discover that. And, girls and boys studying together, we have co-education examples as well. That was hugely interesting. For example, when I came to know that there's a carving in Karnataka of Savinir Madi, who is a woman scholar. There's a carving of her in Kolar, which was found. And I think now they have put it in a museum in Bangalore. That is a direct education of women being educated. Direct evidence, direct evidence of women being educated in ancient times. There's a carving with her name and what she studied. And she's not even married. It's not like, so only her parents' names are mentioned. So this is a woman who was respected by the whole village for her education, and they made a carving of hers. So these little facts and anecdotes used to fill me with joy and make me keep going on and on. In fact, it was going to become a very, very long book. I had to literally say, okay, now this much and no more. Let's not put everything in one book.
Yes. It's very interesting to know that people traveled very widely to gain knowledge, and they were seekers. So today, you in your book you mentioned 56 students from different universities, from different countries, foreign students. They studied in our universities. Today, how do we restore this lost pride in our universities? How can we attract, foreign students or those who are seekers of knowledge? How do we, actually, how do we retain our own children? How do we inspire them to be proud of our university education in India?
So I think that to make them proud, the first thing is to disseminate all the Indian knowledge systems, what all, to make people know, so you have to increase awareness. So that is through books, through well-written books, books of, for different age groups, for different audiences, of course, audio-visual methods, workshops, all this is happening. But we need to see what is the quality, in all these. And also there is too much, so people don't know which one to go for. So we need courses on Indian knowledge systems, which the Indian government is promoting. So courses on Indian knowledge systems and short courses, long courses, books, all these have to be used. And then of course, Gurukulas like yours, like Vidyakshetra will also be helping to create that passion. When that happens, you will find that students will come. And I'm actually seeing it already. Living in America, I do know that there are people who are asking me, where can I learn Sanskrit if I go to India? Which is the best place? Should I go to Kashi? Should I go to Gujarat? Should I go to South India? Or I want to know more about culture. So these questions are coming. And just recently, I came to know about a young girl, an Indian from Austin, who traveled, who came to study Ayurveda in India.
Achha.
And she went to Hassan, Karnataka, the Ayurvedic college there, and she took a degree from there. And following her example, many more came. She got an Ayush scholarship. So see, Ayush is giving scholarships to those who want to study Ayurveda in India. So maybe this is where government and private institutions can offer scholarships to foreign students who want to come and study in India. That can be done. So I think there are many ways you can, so you have to first of all let them know that if you come to study in India, it will be very comfortable. You will enjoy the experience. So right, to make it an enjoyable experience. Ultimately, what they'll remember is the experience,
Right.
the friends they make, and then we should have a welcoming community for them, right? So in ancient India, when the Chinese students came to study in India, they were looked after very well in India. They were treated like royal guests by the universities as well as by the people wherever they went. So that culture also should be there of us welcoming people, foreigners who have come to study in India. So I think it can be done and it's happening, but maybe we'll see the results after 10 years when the government and various other institutions put their act together.
Yes, I really hope so. You were mentioning about the memory strengthening and memory training. So in your book, there is an example of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who went to Mithila, and Mithila being a place wherein knowledge was highly guarded. There were Sanskrit dissemination courses, and this was a highly guarded secret. So he learned it verbatim and reproduced it verbatim after coming back, which shows that he had memorized the entire course in his head. So is it possible to strengthen one's memory and to develop this kind of memory even today?
Absolutely, because we are still the same human beings that we were hundreds of years ago, right? We are Homo sapiens and we have a certain brain capacity, so which we are not really developing. So in the way the Indians did in ancient times, they would make sure that at a very young age, a child would memorize a lot of things. And that is really good because children at a young age they just absorb things like a sponge. So they can learn hundreds of shlokas, they can learn so many songs, they can learn different languages. So all this was done in ancient India because they would not treat it as something that the child is being burdened with, because that's what even Zhuangzang has mentioned when he observed Indians, he said they love learning, they enjoy it. Nobody's pushing them to study. So I think memory can be expanded by making sure that at a very young age they learn lots of songs, and they're not their minds are opened up, and their curiosity is there, and at the same time, in a song way, in a story way, you teach them lots of things. So that's the way the entire Vedas used to be memorized. Not just Vedas, they would know many commentaries by heart, they would know so many Shastras by heart. And if we look into history, there are accounts of good memories of not just the Pandits, but even the common people, the dhobis, the people who make medicines, the pharmacists, as they would call them today. There is a foreign traveler who says that if you go to buy some medicines, then the pharmacist knows exactly which medicine is kept where. Now there are hundreds of diseases, thousands of diseases. How does he know which medicine is kept where? But he would bring out exactly that medicine. He would just not even search, he would just bring it out and give it. And then there's a mention of the dhobi who is taking clothes from every house. How does the dhobi remember which clothes belong to who? And they would always unfailingly deliver. So memory was something that Indians were endowed with. It is our legacy, and it was developed from childhood with all these shloka learning, everything, whatever in the names of plants around you, fruits, right? So they would know the names of everybody, all the characters in Ramayana and Mahabharata. So in a play way, memory was improved. And then, of course, when Pandits went to young Vatus went to Gurukulas, Veda Pathshalas to learn the Vedas, then in a structured way, the memory would be incorporated. They would be made to learn in different ways, right? If you know the different pathas, there are different levels of learning the Vedas, right? So you first learn, you just recite word by word, then you take two words and then you reverse it. So there are various patterns by which you learn, a non-linear way of learning. So if you just do rote learning, repeating the same thing day after day in the same way, you won't actually remember much if you don't practice it. But if you learn in a non-linear way, so our ancient rishis, our gurus knew that to develop memory, there has to be a non-linear way of teaching. So that's how the Vedas were learned in different ways. It's there in music also, right? Sa re ga ma, like that, that different patterns of sa re ga ma, so that you know everything backwards also you can say it, right? So that's the way memory was improved. I'm sure there are many more techniques, and that's why I've been saying that the mainstream schools need to interact with the Vedic schools in order to learn the memory techniques. We all need memory techniques too, because we are just forgetting, we are outsourcing everything. We think that it's in my phone, so I don't need to remember. Oh, I can find it on Google, I don't need to remember. So this is a very wrong way of thinking, because that is diminishing our brain capacity. So ultimately, actually there has been research to show that when your memory is good, it helps in various other things. Your cognition improves, and it improves your argumentative skills, your debating skills. It maybe even helps in your character, improving your character. It makes you a strong person. So, in different situations, shloka might come to your mind because you memorize it so well. So in this situation, when you remember that shloka, then you know what to do, right? So it also helps in the way you behave. Psychologically, it affects you. It helps you. So memory will impact every aspect of your life, and I made a strong case for it in my book that we need to do something about memory for today's students.
Also knowing that human beings are more and more using less and less of their brain capacities. It's even less than 10% of the brain capacities are being used.
I mean, in the Western world, they're just learning English, one language. Can you imagine how many languages they could have learned, and they just learn one language, English, right? That way, we Indians are doing better, but we could still do more. And learning 8 to 10 languages, I believe, is not hard at all for Indians.
So this non-linear learning concept is something very interesting, and this was a very part of our culture. So you mentioned Zhuang, and I read in your book that he spent about 17 long years studying, collecting memos, collecting books, and various other things. His collection grew so much that he had difficulty carrying all the wealth he had collected back. So he was so fond of knowledge. And India was, this shows that India was such a sharing culture. We shared everything so freely. So what are your views on this culture of ours, which was a
which was sharing culture. What about this knowledge sharing culture?
Yes, so the seekers of knowledge, if they persisted enough, if they demonstrated the adhikara for a certain kind of knowledge, then gurus would definitely take them and share knowledge, because that is how our knowledge went to the rest of the world. So when you, in my book on there's a chapter on transmission of Indian knowledge. You will see how our books were translated to different languages. So that's the way it was. I mean, so a Greek comes along, Pythagoras comes along, wants to know about something. Then seeing his passion, a guru would teach him. So that's how we saw that Pythagoras is said to have traveled to India. Right? So Greeks have come, Persians have come, Chinese came, Mongolians came. So many foreigners came and they learned from different gurus. That has been the culture of India, that sharing knowledge, because knowledge was not patented. But there was this requirement that you need to give the knowledge to an adhikari. So if that person is good, the guru has to judge whether this student is going to use the knowledge well and teach the next generation, or is he going to keep the knowledge only for himself, or is he going to be selfish and making money out of it. All these things were seen, and then the student would be taken, right? And then knowledge would be given. So you see, but I also sometimes feel that we shared too freely. We didn't judge properly and we gave the knowledge away easily. Because when you look at the British, when they took knowledge from India, the Portuguese, right? Look at the Portuguese, Garcia de Ota, when he lived in Goa, or maybe he lived in Tamil Nadu, I'm not sure where. And he had, when he used to fall sick, he used to be treated by the local doctor, the ones who gave him Siddha medicine or Ayurvedic medicine. And he used to ask them, what medicines have you given me? I want to plant that here. Got all those herbs planted in the yard of his house. And then he wrote papers on that, and that got published in Portugal in various journals, and that became his knowledge. He has taken it from the Siddha practitioners, from the Ayurvedic practitioners, not crediting them by name, and that became their knowledge, right? So that's the way we shared too freely, I feel. And then, of course, William Jones and various other British officers, they used to learn from Sanskrit Pandits all the time. In fact, it is said that it was for William Hastings. He would just love to go away in the weekends and sit in the company of Brahmin Pandits and keep learning, because once you learn Sanskrit, then you can keep talking to the Pandits and keep asking questions. You'll get the answer, and then you can pretend that that's your knowledge. So a lot of knowledge was taken away from India because they shared very freely. And of course, they would copy manuscripts, right? When Zhuangzhang came, he studied here and then he copied. That is legitimate, right? He spent time with the Guru, learned from the Guru, took permission from the Guru to make copies of the manuscripts, took them back. But many others didn't do that. They would just question them, they would listen to them, and then they would write their own books. They would write their articles and journals. So that way a lot of knowledge had been shared and probably been misused. Misrepresented. That has also happened with yoga. So when yoga was taught to the Westerners, so they took only the asana part of it and not the darshana part of it. And so yoga became just the asana, and then everybody they think bending your body in different shapes is yoga, but they didn't take the whole framework of knowledge along with it. And that's how we have such terrible yoga gurus who went to the West, who did all this yoga, practiced yoga teaching for money. So you had like Bikram and all these people, right, who were also predators, and they gave not only yoga a bad name, but they also gave Hinduism a bad name. And so we wonder why was it allowed, right? How did that knowledge why was it even taught and shared with such people? So those things have also happened because we were sharing our knowledge quite freely.
Yeah. So free knowledge is free, but we have to look at the eligibility, and we have to look at the patritva of the disciple, and then only give that knowledge.
That is all there. I mean, that is the dharma of the Guru. That is why so many students would be turned away, because the Guru doesn't think this Shishya is going to use it in the right way. And one thing is, that do you have the capacity to bring the next generation of students? So when you learn, you are also going to be a teacher. So you should have those qualities of a teacher. So that was something that needed to be observed. But many times I feel that some of our acharyas were teaching to these white-skinned people. They were feeling very happy, and they just taught them. So if you see in Oxford, there is a carving of William Jones sitting on a chair, and then the Brahmanas who are teaching him, they are sitting on the floor. That's not the way learning should happen. Why did those gurus even teach him? But that's the way I think a lot of knowledge was given.
Yes, it's a sad state
Sad,
when
yes.
we have reached to. Sahana ji, at Vidyakshetra, our humble attempt is to, revive our lost educational heritage and develop a model and get it ready for people to replicate. And this is our humble attempt. So I feel that there has to be many such attempts, and many people have to join hands in this effort. You have traveled widely. Do you see, a kind of a revival of our Bharatiya education system in pockets? What is your experience of it? Do you see a revival happening?
I feel there's a desire for the revival, and that is very important. So what I'm saying is that there is a desire to revive it. Of course, many of the people who have read my book have written to me, and they've been asking me that they want to put their children in Gurukulas. So I have received letters from people in the US, people in Africa, people in the UK, and they're asking me, Sahana ji, I don't want to put my child in a regular modern school. I want to send my child to a Gurukula. Can you recommend a good Gurukula for me? So the desire is rising for sure. Now, whether there are enough institutions to cater to that desire, that's my quest now, to find how many of them are doing that. And that led me to you. So Vidyakshetra, what you're doing, I've been talking about your work at various forums, and I've been going to Gurukula. So I went to Gokarna, then I went to Kashi. When I went to Kashi, of course, I saw only Ved Pathshalas. Then recently I went to Ujjain, where we had a conference. Indica organized a conference on pedagogy of ancient India, and there also I visited Veda Samsthana and saw how they were teaching. Then in Bangalore also there is the Purna Pramati, which has also inspired your institution. I'd heard so much about Purna Pramati, but never been to their Anandavana Gurukula. I got that opportunity this time. So I'm seeing that there are Gurukulas, lots and lots of them, which are coming up, and also have friends. I have a friend, Mohitji, who has started in Uttar Pradesh. He has started one Gurukula there. Then I know about other friends also who are planning to start. So yes, it is rising. The desire for reviving our educational heritage is coming up, and institutions are also coming up in a small way. But what we need is plenty of teachers. So we need a lot of acharyas. Once the acharyas are in place, and then there's a whole pedagogy in place, I think it will be easy, because the biggest challenge for all of them is they can't be just studying the ancient subjects, right? They need to be, they need to think of what jobs will they get after the education, because primarily, sadly, education is just about getting jobs today. So if we are trying to create the ancient knowledge systems, we are trying to revive them, there has to be an ecosystem which also employs these people who come out from the system. So in ancient India, they could get any job that they wanted. They could do, all those professions were there. So many professions were there, right? So now we have to make those bridges between today's professions and the ancient knowledge system, so that there is a very seamless way of going from one to the
Transition.
other, and that is the challenge. But I think the process has started, and a lot of minds are now engaged in thinking of how do we do it. And because that's why I'm being invited to so many conferences to speak about this, so I can see it's happening all over India. You can see, or even in America, the Indian Americans, there are so many inquiries about, can we start a Gurukula in America? So in Atlanta, in New York State. And I have discovered now that there are lots of ashrams. So a lot of gurus who have moved to America have set up their beautiful ashrams. And in a way, they're already teaching. They're teaching all these things, but they are more of the side subjects, right? So people who are in jobs, they try to find some time and do a 1-week course or 10-day course on some ancient knowledge system. It could be yoga, it could be Ayurveda. So I think maybe that will come up first. So we need more of those short courses in different parts of the world, or in India also. Because working people cannot straight away give up their jobs and start teaching or learning. So we need more of these short courses, then maybe slightly longer courses, and then degree courses. All that has to happen. I think it's going to happen soon. I'm positive.
Thank you for such positivity and hope. It is a very hope-giving moment right now. Vidyakshetra, as you know, stands at a threshold today we have the model ready for 6 to 16-year-old education system. We have conceptualized and visualized a 16 to 21 vritti-centric model. You mentioned that we need to not just be in the ancient times, we also need to contextualize it to today's need, and to see how one can become artha-centric, how it can create artha for them. So the vritti, if that creates artha for them, then that's in accordance to dharma. If one is moving in that direction, then one's moksha prapti is ensured. That is what is it's representative of our culture too. So do you think that the world today is ready for this kind of a model, which is vritti centric and in accordance to one's dharma?
I think it's absolutely ready. This is the time that, what Vidyakshetra is doing right now, it is just the right time to have hundreds and thousands of Vidyakshetras, because people just need to know. If, you need just your 10 or 20 of your 12th grade students who have studied in Vidyakshetra going into the world and starting their own businesses, the sattvic businesses, and, or even in their jobs that they join, where they bring in this kind of learning. Once people see what they are capable of, I think then it will create that need, and all these things will happen very quickly. I think the world is absolutely ready. Right now, it's like they're wondering, is it possible? Can we really do it?
Yes.
But when you show it to them, and we saw that when I brought my friends to Vidyakshetra yesterday, and even when I'm telling people about it, they're all getting very excited, and they're not doubting it. They're not saying that it's impossible. They're not saying that, but they are just asking, is it possible? Will they be able to adjust? So we have to give them those examples, those role models of people who studied in Gurukulas and then they became IAS officers and they're working in the government and they're making all these fantastic policies, or they are working with the villages and doing certain amazing things. So once those stories come out, or restoration of rivers, all these things, when we link that to studying in the Gurukula and then you're doing things for the environment, you're reversing environmental damage, you're coming up with innovative solutions to combat climate change. And all this is coming from Gurukula trained students who are not using some hi-fi technology. So when these stories come out, I feel that there'll be, all these things that you're talking about, you're envisioning, will happen very fast.
Yes.
I am convinced.
Aapke muh mein ghee shakkar. So we have envisaged 108 such Gurukulas. Maybe there could be many more. So way back, probably a decade ago, when we had, put some baby steps into this direction of conceptualizing our dream of Panchakosha-based model of education, at that time there were questions being asked to us whether it is possible in today's day and time, because we run it purely on Daan, Dakshina based, and we have imbibed the principles of Panchakosha and our traditional Guru Shishya Parampara as well. So today we have the live model ready for replication. Similarly, we are very, very positive that the 16 to 21 vritti-centric model will also be ready in a few years' time, and then it will pick momentum. So your blessings be upon us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, this Dana, the model is very, very interesting, and it's so authentic, right? I mean, that's the way it was. The whole society used to donate to educational institutions, and in every puja, they would invite teachers and give them something, right?
Yes.
And even as recent as just 50, 60 years ago, I came to know that in villages in UP, villages in Bengal, from every household, some grain, something would go from their house to the teacher's house. So it's a pathshala, it's not even a Gurukula. But still people were believing in giving to the teacher, right?
Yes.
They would send from every house. And so the teacher would not have to go and buy grain himself, because it would come from all the people living around. And this has been commented upon by Britishers, and they're wondering, what is this, right? Eventually, their policies led to an end of all that, and then those pathshalas died out. But what you are doing is actually reinvigorating that society, where the people are giving to teachers, giving to gurus, right?
Yes.
And in educational institutions. So I think that's amazing.
Sahana ji, you mentioned a very interesting thing that, the momentum will pick up when people who are inspired to be teachers will come together, and there is an Acharya Nirman which has to happen. So how will it happen? Because today people are after money, after a job, and after so many necessities, needs have grown, and there's hardly anybody who's thinking about what is my contribution, what can I do for the society. So in such an environment, where will we find those teachers who have it within them, this inspiration to be a teacher? And what do you think, how will this momentum build? Because without teachers, no education system can survive. And there have to be inspired teachers who are meant to be there for the children, who have the best interest of the children. Whether they have the degree or not is not our concern. Whether they have the best interest of the child and the nation is really our concern. So how do you think this all will come together, this teacher Nirman, Acharya Nirman, how will it happen?
I think this has to happen organically. We already know that a lot of people are wanting to come back from from America, from UK. They actually want to come back to India. This has been going on for the last 10 years, because when they go abroad, yes, they make money, they lead the good life, but then a certain emptiness starts coming in, right? So those who are slightly deep in their thinking will start feeling that emptiness, and then they will, that's why they go to ISKCON, that's why they go to various other gurus, right? They go to ashrams, they do. So maybe they go to learn yoga, and in the process of learning yoga, they meet somebody, they meet an inspiring person. That's how a lot of people are connecting back to their roots, right? It's happening not just in India, by the way, it's happening in other countries as well. Some people are connecting back to their the African traditions, various other places it's happening. So it's not just India, it's happening everywhere. So when they try to connect to their roots, that's a time when hopefully they will come across these Acharya Nirman centers, and then they will get into this, this whole process of becoming rooted in the tradition and then becoming a teacher. I think it can happen because in Vidyakshetra itself, you have so many of these people, the Acharyas, who have left their careers and then become these teachers. So I think it's going to become more and more, because, we know that it's not sustaining. It's not sustainable to continue the way we are with all our jobs and with all these, these targets being given, and this endless growth. All that is making people crazy. There are mental health issues worldwide. So it could actually be mental health which might trigger a lot of people to move away from the mainstream education. Because I'm hearing a lot of people telling me about their children's mental health issues and how they are not able to cope with this system where, you're just competing for higher marks, higher grades, or, constantly having to prove yourself in something or the other, that you are the best in something. So it is taking a toll on mental health. And so many, in the US also, I see dropouts, plenty of college dropouts, and then they try to go and do some, something in their garage, or they try to start, or they go into music or some art. So, which is already happening in the US, right? And in India too. I mean, among Indians also it is happening in the US. And even here, I'm sure that this emptiness at some time will hit hard. And when they see enough number of acharyas around them, so that's the way it's going to happen. It's going to happen organically, I feel like. When they see more and more examples around them, that's the way it will happen. But yes, a push can be given by the government also. Government can definitely, by all these scholarships that it is giving, scholarships can also be given for those who want to learn how to teach. What about Acharya scholarships? So those kind of things, the government can do its bit, private institutions can do their bit. There are lots and lots of private institutions. There are also these Birlas and the Ambanis, right, who are helping artisans, by the way. I was seeing the other day a video of Neeta Ambani, who is helping artisans. She was very struck by the fact that when she went to Nathdwara, and she saw that a lot of these artisans have become sewage cleaners and have done and she was so upset about it. So, when this awareness spreads among all these big businesses and industrialists also, they will do it. And then, we have examples like Sridhar Vembu. Right? How he realized that this mainstream education is not needed at all for finding employees in his company. And he found that way of going to the village and then using village people, giving them that education needed. So maybe even more of such people will come, and they realize that a Gurukula education is what is needed. And then we start these dharmic businesses, dharmic entrepreneurs, right? So that means we need acharyas for that.
Right.
So even teaching is a kind of an entrepreneurship, you can say, right? If you see the entrepreneur model, so we can have this Acharya Nirman in that kind of model also. So I feel these are some ideas I'm just throwing around, but ultimately it will happen organically, and it will happen with great role models who are going to, they are going to be the messenger for this.
So I hear you, what essentially I get from you is that in their own careers, when people hit a plateau, that something is leading me to dissatisfaction.
Yes.
And what is it? So, and plus the children, when they see the struggle of children coping, when they're not able to cope, these things will lead them to soul searching. And that could lead to Acharya Nirman.
And if I may interrupt, the Goshala story also, the Texas Goshala. I'm hearing about more and more people wanting to set up Goshalas. And ultimately, I feel through the Goshala, maybe they'll connect to the Gurukula. And in Texas Goshala also, they do want to set up a Gurukula. Right? Abhinav Goswami and Pratibha Goswami have told me that they want to start a Ved Pathshala or a Gurukula there. So, when people connect in different ways, they'll either connect to the knowledge system or they'll connect to the temple, and through the temple they'll come to know about this acharyas, need for even pujaris, because there's also a big need for pujaris, because pujaris' children are not becoming pujaris. They are getting into mainstream education and they don't want to be purohitas, right? So that all this interconnection has to happen between the temple, the Gurukula, the Goshala, right? And then everything, when it gets connected, I feel that's when all this Nirman will happen.
So we need to look at it holistically, we need to all come together and create that system which essentially was our system.
Right.
So you were mentioning about this concept of Daan, and there are three kinds, there is the Daan, there is the concept of Dakshina, which the parents give to the Acharya, and Daan is given out of one's free will to anyone. And then there's the concept of Bhiksha. When the Acharya is not able to meet his ends, he goes and asks Bhiksha, or the disciples go and ask for Bhiksha. So the asking part is the Bhiksha and the giving part is the Daan. So these are some of the principles which have sustained us for these long years. And I'm sure it will sustain us because there is an awakening. We see, that anybody today is able to recognize good effort. If people are sincere and if people have the right philosophy and the right ideologies, one is willing to invest in them with their beliefs.
Actually, it is during the British rule that all this destruction happened of Dana, Dakshina and everything. Because the British were very critical of Hindus who are giving in large amounts to charities. And they actually wanted that don't give charities, give it as tax to the government. So they would, so that's how a lot of giving stopped. So when I was young, I remember that, we didn't have this culture of seva. So going to missionary schools and all that, we didn't have the original concept of seva earlier, it used to be in ancient India. So this is the thing that the British destroyed for us, that seva, dana, right? So that needs to be brought back, that you need to give, you need to volunteer. Maybe some ideas we can take from Western institutions over there, because over there, though you could say it's a transactional thing, lots and lots of children volunteer in America because they get credits for it. So there are a number of credits that they need to get in order to, finish their schooling or even in college. So to get the credits, they do volunteering. And so they look for volunteering opportunities and they select what kind of volunteering do they want to do. Do you want to do it in a museum? Do you want to do it in a school? Do you want to do it with a doctor? So you can choose what volunteering opportunities you want to do. I feel like we should also do that in India. We should have if somebody wants to do seva, don't copy the American model of the credits and stuff like that. Though I'm sure it's already been, I think it has been introduced in India now. People get credits for it. But I think for seva also, if somebody wants to do seva, where all can I do seva? It should be available on the net. That you can do seva here. If you go to the website, it should have all those things written there, that if you want to do seva, come here and contact us. So you can choose what kind of seva, whether you want to do it in knowledge, you want to do physical work, right? Or you want to do it in a business kind of setting, teaching some kind of skill or something, various kinds of seva, right? So that I think we should also make it known to people, that make it easily available for people who want to do seva, where they can do it.
Yes, so this credit system you mentioned about the way it is being done in the US universities, I feel, the students are motivated in some way or the other to do their volunteering.
And even to give, just to give you an example, my daughter, because she had to volunteer, right? So she chose to go and teach English to adults in Texas, where we were. So every Wednesday, she used to go in the evening after school to teach some adults, older people English, and they would come from different countries. So, there's some housewives from some country who doesn't know English. So in that process, she actually met a lot of people from Afghanistan, various other countries, and she would be very excited. Okay, today I met somebody from Afghanistan. And then when she taught them English over a period of weeks, several weeks or months, they were so grateful, and they gave her gifts when she finished, and so then she realized how wonderful it is. So I feel that even though it is kind of transactional, that volunteering that they're doing in America, it is still doing some good. So I was thinking, why are we not doing it in our own model that way? And it will do so much more good. Right? I wish we could do that and make it widespread all over India, where we all, after school hours, even if we are not going to a Gurukula, but we have this culture of doing seva somewhere or the other.
Yes. So at Vidyakshetra, we have the concept of Shramadan. So it is done, what you do voluntary from your side is all done. So Shramadan is there. Then in our culture, there is Kanyadan. Anything that is given is called Daan. So all the children upkeep the campus and that they do daily Shramadan. So you have visited us a couple of times, Sahanaji. What are some of the things you like about Vidyakshetra?
So what I really love about Vidyakshetra is first of all, the focus on the arts. Because you've actually understood the need of the hour, that you have to focus on the arts. It's, there is only so much of analysis you can do, and analysis paralysis, as they say. But for that inner joy to awaken, you have to learn some art. You have to try different arts and see which one you like the most, right? So that is the best thing I like about Vidyakshetra. So later in life, I realized this will be so good for them. When grow old, your children are old, they leave you, you're alone. These colors that you've learned, you can keep doing it, helping people to learn, teaching, or just practicing it, and will keep giving you joy. So you're actually giving a mode of joy to everybody by teaching them these different colors, letting them explore. That's the best thing. And of course, I also love the home environment in your Gurukula, which is of course the main ingredient, right? So all of them come, and it's actually a home environment. The way they're eating, and the relationships, how everybody is saying akka, anna, I like that very much. So it's not sir, madam, or Mr., Mrs. It's, you're related to all these people. So that feeling of a family that you're inculcating in the students as well as the teachers. Okay. And then I love the focus on the importance being given to agriculture. So that is something you have preempted the problems of humankind, right? We saw that during COVID as well. When we were living in America, we realized that we are going to the shops and we are finding no vegetables there. So many things were not there. The shelves were empty. And so we were like, what do we eat? So that was such a crisis. And that time, a lot of people did go to gardening. That's the time a lot of people tried to grow something. But, you are already inculcating those skills in the children. So they would know how to grow crops. What are the ingredients? What are the factors? What do you need to do? So that is something I like very much. I also like the pedagogy. You're constantly innovating. You're thinking of how can we teach so that the children understand better. And so I love that focus on pedagogy. Should we teach it like this? Should we teach it in story form? Should we teach it in a schematic form? What are the, so it's a laboratory. So I like that. So you're not just taking some old way of teaching and just continuing with that. You're experimenting. You're constantly talking to the teachers. You're also giving autonomy to the teachers to try out different ways of teaching and then report back to you that this worked, this was successful, and so I'm going to continue. And now the other teachers learn from that. So I like that focus on pedagogy in your institution. Many, many other things. I love the food that you're giving to the children. I feel that people would love to just come and live in your in Vidyakshetra and just live there forever.
So there are many visitors who come to Vidyakshetra, and many adults, they say, I wish I was a child again and got this kind of education. So teachers are also given, every teacher has a creative side to him or her, and they needs to be fanned. So they need to be given enough autonomy to be able to use this creative side of theirs, and that gives them a deeper satisfaction. So this is something that I have learned over a period of time here. So it has been wonderful talking to you, Sahana ji, today. If there is any final message you want to give to our viewers today, what is it?
I think the main message I would like to give them is to become more authentic, to go back to their roots, to know what they really are, right? And that exploration will come by being rooted in our indigenous knowledge systems. So once you start going there, you will get authentic, and then you will want, and I would say that go and contribute as much as you can. There is so much more we can do than what we are doing today. There's so much more we can learn than what we are doing today, right? We are wasting a lot of time. So I would like to tell the one of my messages would be that, have a tight control on your time and think of from morning to evening, what are you doing? So in so many of these Gurukulas that I visited, they wake up at 4 a.m. and then they sleep at 9 p.m. And from that 4 to 9, the number of things that they're doing Go Seva, they're doing their Sandhya Vandana, they're doing all that pranayama, they're studying the Shastras, they're also studying modern subjects. So I think we need to really be more productive in a dharmic way. Giving our time to all these reflections, to be in the midst of nature. So I think that's my message, that use your time well, and then contribute to the Gurukulas, the Goshalas, to all those institutions which are going to bring back that ancient way of living and the ancient knowledge systems, because that's going to revitalize, reinvigorate the whole world. So the problems in today's world, whether it's climate change or it is garbage dumping all over the place, huge consumption, all these problems have come from moving away from our dharmic way of thinking. So I feel like to solve the problems of today, the modern problems, we need to get back our indigenous way of thinking, our Bharatiya Drishti, and then begin to contribute to the world. So that is my message.
Yes. So I would like to tell the viewers that Sahana ji has been, a very important inspiration for all of us, because she just now gave the message of being productive, and what I see is in her own life, she has taken it upon herself to showcase various Gurukulas, various Bharatiya Drishtikon, whoever is possessing this knowledge or is attempting to give out to the world, reach out. She is helping us bridge between, reach out also. And she's doing this tirelessly. And this has been a wonderful contribution. And it's been a pleasure, Sahana ji, to have you with us today. Thank you very much. And we wish you all the best in your endeavors as well. Namaste.